What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Chop and Brew. I am Chip Walton. This is Charlie P. the Beagle. You're joining us on a very, very special day. The first reason for which it is Charlie P. the man's birthday. Charlie P. the Beagle's birthday is in September. If you don't know who Charlie P. is, you should. The man that is, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're also going to brew 2 beers. The other reason why today is especially special. I woke up this morning not really knowing if I was gonna brew it. Then I saw on the Facebooks that it was Charlie Papazian's birthday, and I was like, now I have to. It's a double brew day. We're starting things off with a spiced Irish red. That's an Irish red ale with a little bit of coriander and cloves. We're gonna follow that up with a hop beast that I'm calling the Bama Dynasty Crimson Ale. Roll Tide, haters. And for that special occasion, we also have Roll Tide moon pies that the Mardi Gras Fairy sent me from the dirty, dirty South. So, pretty awesome day around Homebrew Central, aka Chop and Brew headquarters, aka my kitchen studio. So, right along with us, we're doing 10 gallons of beer. We're going to talk about Charlie P. We're going to pet Charlie P. And we're going to eat this moon pie. Chop for chop, brew for brew. Warning: Chop and Brew is meant for entertainment and enjoyment purposes only, not for dogmatic instruction. Anything we do in this show, whether it be chop or brew, should not be taken as the way to do things, only a way to do things. So it's kind of a hectic brew day, trying to line up 2 brews back to back. They're both extract, some specialty grains for steeping. They're pretty easy in theory, but doing them back to back is kind of what's making them weird. So throughout this brew day, you're going to see a couple beers. You're going to see a couple of wort chilling sessions. You're going to see some spices. You're going to see a whole lot of hops. This one's already going. This is the Spiced Irish Red. Thus far, I've filled the kettle with 2.5 gallons of water and steeped my specialty grains, which is some Belgian caramel pills, some special roast, some Belgian biscuit, some English chocolate malt. Pour that into the muslin bag. Tie it off real good while the water comes up to temperature. I usually steep my specialty grains for about 20 minutes at around 140 as it rises to 170. You're not actually getting fermentable sugars for the most part out of these grains. They're there for flavor, for color, maybe some texture. So it's not really anally important that temperature's pegged. 140 to 170 will do you right for steeping grains. I like to put my malt jugs, especially now in the winter, in a hot water bath, either in the sink or in a bucket. But put some steaming hot water, as hot as your tap water will get over that. That'll help loosen up the extract. Once your steeping grains are out, you're going to let those drip dry over the kettle for a minute. Put them aside. Bump your heat up and try to get up to boiling. On your way to boiling, at some point though, kill the heat or lower it to an extreme low flame and add the liquid malt extract. In this case, I'm just using 6 pounds of gold malt syrup. Make sure you stir. You don't want this syrup going straight to the bottom of the kettle and scorching. I've heard many horror stories of people who poured it in on high flame and didn't realize they're supposed to stir it, and next thing you know they have like charcoal flakes floating in their beer. That's not good for any beer. Once we get up to boiling, this recipe that I'm doing here calls for 60-minute bittering addition of 1 ounce Willamette. That's a nice, delicate, somewhat spicy hop. Gonna let it go for 30 minutes. At 30 minutes, we're putting in 1 ounce of Golding, also pretty much a delicate, somewhat spicy hop. That's gonna be kind of our flavor addition at 30 minutes. And then close to flame out, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add some coriander. I've made this recipe before early in my home brewing career back in Austin, Texas about 5 years ago. Wow, batch number 3, I think, and I called it the O Rojo Spiced Irish Red. And in it, I crushed up some coriander, and I put maybe 3 whole cloves in it in the last 5 minutes. I don't have whole cloves this time around, so we're going to use ground cloves and just a couple pinches of it. That's much more potent, I feel, than the coriander. The coriander, I'm putting maybe a tablespoon in a mortar and pestle, giving it a nice crush, get those seeds and big husky firm skins busted up into a fine dust. You could also use a coffee grinder, which I usually use for spices. Bust that up real good, get that to be a nice fine mixture. We're going to toss the coriander and the cloves in the last 5 minutes And then maybe with those at 5 minutes, or maybe even more like 1, I'm going to do kind of a weird addition of the German Perle hops. Those are supposedly pretty fruity, pretty hoppy. So I think it'll also make a nice twist. We're kind of turning the Irish Red on its head, adding just a little bit of spice. The coriander is kind of lime zest and lemony to me. I feel like I get a lot of citrus zest off of coriander. The clove, as you all know, is just kind of clovey. I think those two things kind of rode the malt really well when I did it on batch number 3. So this is batch number, I lost track, 63, 70, who knows. And it's just a nice cool thing to experiment with. While we're in chill mode here waiting for our next hop edition on the Spiced Irish Red, I would like to talk about Charlie P. Man, Charlie Papazian, the man, is a godfather, a forefather, a cornerstone of the home brewing culture and community. He's the man behind the founding of the American Homebrewers Association, as well as up into the Brewers Association. So that just kind of shows how craft beer and homebrew constantly makes this big circle. But Charlie P is a great guy. I got the pleasure to meet him at least 3 or 4 times during the time of doing Brewing TV. Got to interview him one-on-one a couple times. A couple times we just kind of kicked it and talked. And the coolest thing about him is, A, he's a great source for history and an idea of feeling like, what was homebrewing before it existed? We're all lucky enough to have shops and books and internets, but Charlie P really puts homebrewing in perspective, you know, when homebrewing really was homebrewing, getting your supplies by any means necessary, and, you know, doing a lot of tweaks and just working around things. You know, we're blessed these days to have as many resources as we do. So if you haven't read it, if you're new to brewing, I definitely suggest The Complete Joy of Homebrewing. This is epic stuff right here. Charlie P breaking it down. I read through it 2 or 3 times before even starting homebrewing, before I bought my first starter kit at Austin Homebrew Supply, way down south. Microbrewed Adventures, this book is redonkulous. It is awesome. It's Charlie P. The whole first half, he's chronicling these travels around the world, around our country, around homebrew competitions. It's awesome. There's stuff from every country you can imagine that has beer as an important element of its culture. Then the second half is just amazing recipes. Couple are clones or attempts at clones of commercial beers, but what it is more important to me, which I love Charlie P about this, the recipes are inspired by the people, places, and things that he saw. And that's something I think is amazing about beer, how you can take a real-time, real-life experience and then translate that, transpose that into a beer recipe that speaks of the same emotional response. So Charlie P, he's a pimp, he's awesome. He even signed a picture of Charlie P the dog at the last NHC in Seattle. So happy birthday, Charlie. Many happy returns. I hope to see you again sometime. You've been indispensable as an icon and a legend. Charlie P, raise your glass. Raise your moon pie. It's noontime, time for lunch. Wonder if maybe I should drop one of these moon pies in that crimson ale. Dry moon pie it. If you don't know what a moon pie is, you better Google that. It's cake and marshmallow and chocolate. It microwaves well. You can freeze them sons of gunses and eat them. And they love to throw them off of floats at Mardi Gras in Mobile specifically. That's a big thing. You gotta watch out, man. You get knocked out with a moon pie if you ain't paying attention. Let's talk about Alabama for a second, right? Holy cow. I'm from Alabama. I'm in the Twin Cities right now, but I grew up for the most part in Alabama. Went to middle, high school, and college. University of Alabama. Football team wasn't that awesome back then, so that's kind of a bummer, but at least they are now. That makes up for it. Subliminally, the best part about the second beer, the Bama Dynasty Crimson Ale that we're gonna brew, we're fermenting it with this cool new American West Coast yeast strain, BRY 97. Could also be looked at as Bry, as in Brian, as in Brian Adams, an Auburn fan who's a punk. This beer is gonna be actually fermented with Bry. Go figure, roll tide, Bry. I'm just kidding, he's not really a punk, don't tell him I said that. We're at about 7 minutes left in the Spiced Irish Red boil, so we're gonna go ahead and get the Crimson Ale steeping grains going over here. It ended up being 1.5 gallons. In here it's about 155 Fahrenheit, so I'm just going to let it hang out. It's going to be probably a good half hour or 45 minutes before we get the Irish Red downstairs, chilled, in a fermenter, yeast pitched, and kettle clean. So hopefully this is going to kind of help us. You can see how dark that is. We might actually be getting kind of a light brown Crimson Ale, but either way, hopefully that'll even out. Over here on this burner, we got the Spice Irish Red. We're now at about 5 minutes. I'm gonna take that coriander and clove goodness, boom, and the 1 ounce of German Perle, blam. We're gonna give all that 5 minutes to hang out. I imagine we'll start smelling some of these spices here in a second. Run it downstairs, chill it super quick. It's 3 minutes to go, and I wasn't getting a lot of the aroma of the coriander, so I put just maybe another little half tablespoon in there and ground it up, and now I'm gonna let it go for the last 3 minutes. Gotta have some spice in the Spice Irish Red. So we killed the heat upstairs. We brought it downstairs. Is that just yeast in your pocket? Are you happy to see me? It's both. Got a pair of scissors, probably dumb to be putting in your pocket. And a thermometer, I'll have to go back up and get. It's about 50 degrees in my basement. It's nice and chilly. So the groundwater itself, I can't imagine is any more than 45 degrees. I probably could have taken a measurement and told you. I'll tell you later. So I'm just going to take my wort chiller where it's been hanging out in sanitizer. A lot of people put it in the boil, the actual kettle, in the last 5, 10, 15 minutes. That's cool too. I just figured if it's that much colder, it'll help bring the temperature down that much faster. Boom, the out on the wort chiller is gonna go into the washing machine. Then we're gonna do some laundry. Boom, everything's connected. Turn on some cold ass water with a towel, and we're chilling. You want to keep stirring this if possible to help the cold water coming through the coil contact even more of the hot wort. If you just put it in there and let it sit for 30 minutes, you're just going to form like this warm buffer zone around the coil. So if you give it good stirs, you're actually going to do a lot to help it cool down that much quicker. I'm going to use this Y yeast West Yorkshire strain. Never tried that in Irish Red before. Should be interesting. Now we just gotta go upstairs and get the thermometer, I guess. Oh, and I gotta sanitize my bucket. We got a lot to do still. Taking the sanitized thermometer, putting it in this cooling wort, I can tell you that after maybe, you gotta be kidding me. After maybe 5 minutes, this is already at 86 degrees. That's absolutely bonkers. Worst comes to worst, when we get it too cool, I can not pitch the yeast now and just take it upstairs and let it kind of even out. Don't ever worry about pitching yeast a little late. You know, get it covered, get it sanitized, get it a closed system. But, you know, if it's too warm and you have no other way of cooling it down, let it hang out at room temperature for a while, or put it in a chest freezer, or do something to it. Put it in a tub of ice, and then the same goes for if you accidentally overshoot and you get too cold. Just leave it out at room temp, let it come back up, and pitch when you're at the temperature that you want. Alright, it's time to kill this. 78 degrees from 2 degrees in less than 10 minutes. It's cold in Minnesota, y'all. You know it, girl. You better pour that sanitizer out. Oh yeah. And put that wort on in. Don't be making fun of my slippers, y'all. I know. Alright, here we go with our 70-ish degrees. Chilled wort. I just took a reading. The groundwater that we're using out of the tap to top this off is actually 40 degrees right now. So I'm going to mix it up with the sanitized spoon and take a reading with the sanitized thermometer to figure out what degree that is at, so I can equalize the temperature of my 2nd gallon of top-up water. We're at 64 degrees, so it brought it down about 6 degrees with 1 gallon. So I'm going to put a little bit of warm water in it this time. We're at about 64, so I think we're good. 1 more gallon. Brings us to just at 5 gallons. I'm good with that. Give it a good stir. Sanitize my yeast pack and my scissors. Yeasty wonderfulness. Gonna put the top on. This is a fermenter named Leadbelly. I named my fermenters after old blues artists to keep up with what was in which fermenter, how many times they've been used, if there was any problems, what might have led to it. A little bit of E&J into the airlock. The thermometer on the side of this bucket says it is 62 degrees. If I leave it down here, it's gonna get too cold. So I need to take it upstairs where it's about 63. Yeah. Boom, just like that, 1 beer down. There's a temperature shift between the basement and the upstairs thanks to boiling wort for about an hour of about 30 degrees. So we're gonna get back into temperate zone here. We've been steeping these brownish grains for a good half hour, 40 minutes. Unbelievable how quickly that wort cooled off when your groundwater is 40. I've put another gallon of really hot water in there. We'll go ahead and get a flame going under it. We're gonna just combine these. Due to the odd shape of that other pot, I went ahead and transferred that liquid into this pitcher to make it a little easier to pour. You can see it's brown, super dark red, meets brown. Hopefully as it gets diluted it'll be a little more crimson. And then the rest of it out of the pot. It's gonna be brown, y'all. But in the end we are gonna dilute it with a lot of water. Oh, I don't know about that. That looks pretty nice to me. That actually looks pretty red. So hopefully this color will hold up through the gold LME and the top off water at the end and remain crimson. Who'll bleed crimson? So let's talk hey now. Let's talk super briefly about this Bama Dynasty Crimson Ale. It's on it. It's obviously it's my tribute for my alma mater and their ass-kicking ways of the last 3 or 4 years of college football, claiming that title, taking that crystal trophy home. So what this is, it's basically a bunch of Centennial throughout the boil. 2 ounces at 60, another 4 ounces between 20 minutes and 0. I'm just going to kind of dole them out a lot more towards the end. All Centennial and Centennial type, since Centennial is hard to come by, but I do have some true Centennial. Ooh, and I have some yard hops from Mr. Don Osborne. We'll see. But the crazy part about this thing is there's about 6 other ounces, 4, 5, 6 other ounces that are going to be for dry hopping with the trippiest of the hops from my buddy Vaughn's secret stash. We got some Citras, got some Australian Galaxy. So a lot of the flavor components of this beer is actually going to come from an intense, interesting bill of dry hops. But it is going to be bitter all the same for the Bama haters out there. I'm looking at you, Brian Adams. This bitter Bama beer's for you, son. The steeping grains we use to try to achieve this kind of crimson color are actually, it's just a portion of other malts that were put together for a porter. So there's some English chocolate malt, some English dark crystal, and some English black malt. That's also going to add a little bit of different flavors to the beer, a little bit of chocolate, slightest bit of roast. Turn the heat down, give it a stir, bring the heat back up. It's a delicate dance here, delicate dance, trying to keep your stove from being ruined by wonderful IPA goodness. Let the hop drops begin. 20 minutes, 1 ounce Centennial type. Blah-dow. 10 minutes, 1 more ounce of Centennial type. Looky what we got here. 2 ounces of true Centennial pellet hops. Getting ready for the 3, 2, 1. Oh yeah, you know what that means. Flame out, hops in. We're gonna give this a little hop steeping time, maybe just a couple minutes here while I gather up stuff that needs to go into the basement. And then we're gonna chill this bad boy. And in the future, we're gonna stick 6 ounces of pellet hops in there for dry hopping. It's gonna be a beast. Alabama, what? We flamed out, we let these hops kind of swirl around for about 10 minutes upstairs. Now we're back in the basement. Second verse, same as the first. We're gonna put the chiller over here. It's gonna take a little longer to cool this time just because there's more volume. in here, but I have no doubt that this still won't take 10 or 15 full minutes. As you can see, this second beer, ironically for one named after Alabama, will be going into Mississippi John Hurt. One big difference between the O Rojo Spiced Irish Red and the Bama Dynasty Crimson Ale is the amount of hops that went into it. And because of that, we're going to have to use this double mesh strainer at the end of pouring my cooled Bama Dynasty wort into the bucket. There's going to be a lot of hop sediment at the bottom, but it's also going to have a lot of wort in there. I don't want to lose that. So towards the end of pouring into the fermenting bucket, we're going to start straining it through this, and we might even have to knock it out a time or two. So as you notice, I went ahead and got some real shoes on for the second beer. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this wort, which has been cooled to 74. I'm going to pour it into the bucket. And then as we get closer to the bottom, where all the hop debris and whatnot is bottomed out during the course of chilling, I'm going to start pouring through that funnel, or sorry, through that, whatever you call it, strainer. Because I want to try to keep as much hops as I can out, because that'll just ultimately take up space at the bottom of your fermenter and kind of end in a little resulting loss of beer. So as you can see, it's definitely clogged the strainer pretty much right away. Sanitized spoon. I'm going to come in and just kind of stir this around, help the liquid get outside of that bulk debris. I had this bucket here, this wine fermenter, sanitized, empty at the ready in case I needed to drop this out a couple times, which will happen during a lot of transfers. If I had poured the entire batch through this strainer, I would have had to dump it out a couple of times. But I never thought about just dumping off kind of like the first 2/3, saving the last third. So as you can see, it's pretty dry. Got all the stuff out of it. Didn't even have to do any dump. Awesome. Now I'm going to top this up. I've given it a stir. I've taken a gravity reading. It looks like it's something like 1065, between 1065 and 1070, so it's a big one. So I'm going to put 2 whole packages of BRY 97 dry yeast in here. It's going to be pretty cool, man. I'm excited about this beer. We're going to cap it off Mississippi John Hurt style. Put an airlock in it and move it upstairs. Actually, case in point, after further inspection, the thermometer on the side of this bucket says that this only got down to about 66, 68. That's a bit high. Wish I would have seen that before I pitched the yeast. So I'm actually going to leave it down here on this really cold basement floor and come check in on a couple of hours, see if I can't get it down more to like 60, 62. That's where I like to start most hoppy ales from. So I'm going to go upstairs, clean up, and keep it real. And that's all she wrote. 2 beers in about 4.5 hours. Not bad. I really think that pre-steeping the grains for the second beer during the whole transition period really worked well and cut out a lot of time. In the end, Spiced Irish Red, the return of O Rojo, 1044, little session beer. It's going to be good stuff. Bama Dynasty Crimson Ale actually weighed in higher than I even thought originally once I put it on a refractometer. It's weighing in at about 1070, 1072, mainly because I didn't dilute it all the way up to what it should have been, but I want that to be a strong beer. It's got the bitterness level to do the thing, and it's going to have all of these hops, dry hop. So I think I'm going to cut the episode here, and in an upcoming Chop and Brew, we'll not only dry hop that beer, maybe we'll dry hop a couple of others and kind of talk about different methods for doing that. We got to have something for you to come back for. Thank you, by the way, for watching Chop and Brew. Really appreciate the support. Keep emailing at chopandbrew@gmail.com. Any ideas of episodes you'd like to see, tips, tricks, or techniques you'd like exposed? We've got some really cool stuff coming up. For now, I do want to say to Charlie P, the man, from me and Charlie P, the dog, happy, happy, happy birthday. Thanks for everything you've done for homebrewing and homebrewers. Can't wait to see you again. I'd like to have you to my kitchen one day. Maybe we could do something, or maybe I could come to Boulder. We could do something. But until that day, I'm gonna keep noshing away on my Roll Tide moon pies. I'm gonna keep drinking my India Red Ale on American Oak out of a jelly jar with my name on it. The only way a Bama boy knows how. And I'm gonna say to you, chop for chop and brew for brew. Thank you very much. Holla. Charlie, come get these off the floor, man. Charlie's like, man, I hate you, fool. Happy Mardi Gras, everybody. Eat our moon pie now. Then we put the dog in the bird. Just kidding. Happy Mardi Gras, everybody. Better eat you a moon pie now. High five for Charlie P. High five. High five. Don't leave me hanging, yeah. Wow, Roll Tide. You know it, girl. You better pour that sanitizer out. Oh, yeah. And put that wart on in.